the T2, T2 Pro, the T3, T2 Plus, the T4, probably got them in the wrong order, T2 EVO. Oh my goodness, the tank family lives on. In this video, I'm looking at the Tin Hifi T2 EVO. Let's go. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. Here's the box for the T2 EVO. And if you're familiar with the tank series, you're probably familiar with this box as well. It looks the same on the outside. Got this white cardboard sleeve. Inside it's a little bit different. It's not like the little book that came with the original T2. Now it's this sort of white box with the gold trim. Little gold pattern down here. Pretty nice little box actually. But I'll show you what comes inside. Of course, you get the Tin Hifi EVO earphones. You get the cable, detachable MMCX cable as well. You get a little velvety carrying pouch. You get some silicone ear tips. And you get a pair of the famous Tin Hifi blue foam ear tips. So that's in the box. Having a look at the earpieces now, and you can see we've still got that traditional tank shape. It's basically the same as the original T2, except now there's a semicircle there, which is color coded, by the way. That's a nice little touch to easily help you identify left and right sides. And the original T2 is just a little bit darker in color. It's a gunmetal gray, where this is a sort of a silver color. Okay, let's talk about how these sound now, and I'm going to start off with a bit of a foreword here. So when I first listened to these, I grabbed my regular go-to ear tips, went for my usual shallow insertion, which means a larger ear tip, just a shallow insertion into my ears, just sort of sealing the entrance to my ear canals like that. That is how I roll most of the time. However, doing that with these, the sound was quite bright. It was pretty thin. It wasn't that pleasant. It was a little bit harsh and just didn't sound that good. So what I did, went through a whole bunch of ear tips. Eventually I went for a slightly smaller size and I took the plunge literally deep into my ears. I shoved them right into my ears like that. So if you can imagine, this is my ear canal here. I shoved the IMs right inside, so I got a really cozy, tight fit, which is important with any earphone, but this in particular is very dependent on insertion depth. It's going to depend a lot on people's own ear anatomy and how good a seal you're getting. So it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky, but once I did go deep like that, the sound really came alive. So first of all, I would call the sound signature kind of a neutral bright sound. It's fairly linear, it's fairly neutral across the board. It does have a bit of a lower treble lift, and it's got a thin mid-range, so overall it does sound a little bit bright. Now keep in mind, when I'm describing the sound for this earphone, I'm talking about deep insertion, so take this with a grain of salt. It's going to change a lot for different people depending on your ear and the way you wear your IEMs, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know if you understand or not, but I'll go on anyway. But let's start with the bass. And the bass, as you'd expect from the T2 series, the T2 tank series, it is fast, it's neutral, it has quite a fast decay on it, but it's got a nice paced attack on it. So the attack doesn't sound too paper thin. It's got a nice bit of a thump impact to it, assuming you've got the fit right. But the quantity of the bass overall is fairly light, and particularly the sub bass. So if you're looking for those big rumbly bass, you're not going to find that here. But for things like rock, maybe heavy metal music, this is probably a good option for that, as long as you can handle a bit of a brighter tonality overall. But the bass is really nice. The mid-range is fairly neutral, perhaps slightly on the cool side of things. It's got good instrument separation. It's a reasonably forward mid-range because of the neutral bass tuning. Vocals sound fantastic, really, really nice. The tone the nuance, the texture of vocals is really good. Female vocals sound a little bit better than males, but overall the mid-range is pretty nice. It's got good resolution overall, instrument separation, nice open spacious sound. Now for the treble, and yeah, look, my normal style where the treble was pretty upfront, a little bit too bright for my preference. Going deep in my ears, that sort of evened the frequency response out a lot. The treble really came good when I did that. So it is slightly bright, but it's not harsh. It's an even treble. It doesn't have any sort of awkward peaks going on anywhere. So it's not going to surprise you. It's not going to sound good on one song and terrible on the next. I'm talking about specifically about the treble here. It is a very airy, light sounding treble. It's got great detail retrieval. It's precise. It's fairly accurate. And it creates this lovely wide soundstage. The depth is pretty good this way as well, but not as much as it is wide. So, but it does have this nice expansive soundstage. And look, overall, this is going to be a divisive IEM, I think, because it's so dependent on fit, your ear size, your ear tip size, insertion depth, etc. So, you know what? I'm not going to recommend it. I'm going to say I do like it when I have it set up right, but I think it's a bit of a risk. I think generally most people would like the original T2 here. And with that segue, let's do a little comparison with the original Tin Hifi T2. Now this has got a similar quantity of bass, so it's pretty light in the bass, but it's got a little more fullness in the mid or upper bass, and particularly in the lower and core mid-range, there's more fullness there. So it's got a warmer tonality, it's a little bit more musical, it's slightly smoother, and it balances out that treble a bit more as well. So it's not as bright, it's a little bit darker in tonality overall. And really, I think most people are going to prefer the original T2 still, and these are the same price now. So that would be my call. You can see the shells are exactly the same except for this semicircle shape, which is color coded. I love that, that's awesome. But yeah, the T2 would be my choice. And here's another one for comparison. This is the Kinera BD005 Pro. Now this is a hybrid dual driver IEM. It's got one dynamic driver and one balanced armature driver, pseudo custom type shell. So you get this beautiful fit, better noise isolation. And the sound signature of this one is sort of more of a consumer based tuning. So you get more of a V shape with elevated bass and elevated treble. Now, when I say elevated bass, it's not a huge bassy IEM. In fact, it's quite speedy. It's a pretty fast bass. It's very well controlled, has great definition. It's got a nice bit of sub bass rumble as well, but it's not over the top. You know, in fact, I think I had not listened to this IEM for quite a while, and over the last couple of days when I was listening to it for this comparison, I just remembered how good these are and why I recommended them in the first place. They are a really good value IEM, but getting back to the comparison now, they've got slightly recessed mid-range. So the mid-range is a little bit thin on these as well, similar to the T2 EVO, but you've got that fullness in the bass, and that kind of evens out the treble as well. It does have a nice detailed and airy treble, but the overall tonality is just it's a lot smoother. It's not fatiguing at all for my ears. I can listen to these all day and it doesn't bother me. And yeah, I would pick the Kinera here as well. So look, that is the Tin Hifi T2 EVO. Some people might like it if you don't like brighter tonalities and you don't like treble in particular. This isn't for you. I think for the most part the T2 is still the better earphone, but you know, it's good that Tin Hifi is still making IEMs and they're not just milking the exact same sound signature like some audio companies tend to do. So that is the Tin Hifi T2 EVO, and that's about it for this video. So if you are not subscribed, consider hitting that button for me. We're almost at 5K subs. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style. And until next time, I'll see you later.